I have come to the conclusion that Elijah is the worst original out of all of his siblings. Yes, it may sound crazy when I lay it on you just like that, since Elijah is most notably known for being honorable and noble, or also because his siblings consist of crash outs like Klaus and Cole. But for the sake of bluntness and getting to the point, again, I stand to reason Elijah is non-negotiably the worst / monstrous siblings out of the originals. And in today's video, I'll tell you why, how, and why. But first, we have to start at the beginning. As always, our introduction to Elijah takes place in season 2, episode 8 of the Vampire Diaries series, Rose. To sum it up, Elena is kidnapped by two old vampires, Rose and Trevor, to be offered to some mysterious person named Elijah for their freedom. After witnessing pure panic coupled with fear from Rose and Trevor, Elijah eventually arrived. Now, this moment was most intriguing to me because with all the midlife crisis actions Rose and Trevor were exempting, I was expecting more of a beast to arrive and not someone of classiness and mannerisms to appear. But unbeknownst to me at the time, a beast did in fact appear. After negotiating for a bit, Rose said a few words that let us know who Elijah is foundationally.
Elijah, you're a man of honor.
A man of honor. Then takes him to meet her bargaining chip Elena for their freedom. After showing remarkable self-control and good critical thinking skills, Elijah to me seemed like a solid, not so bad guy, which started to make me question why they were so afraid until we saw the first glimpse of the true beast underneath. Accepting the trade Elena for their freedom, Elijah walks up to Rose and Trevor, and not expecting what was going to happen next, I was completely flabbergasted. No emotion, no hesitation, all brutality, even after presenting himself as a calm-headed, stable vampire. With this one interaction, I fully understood that Elijah might have actually been the big bad wolf in sheep clothing. But despite that realization, as time went on and I got to see more of Elijah, the idea of him actually being a cold-blooded beast began to fade from my head, as I often noticed him actually being honorable, noble, and a good / neutral force in the show. Furthermore, our introduction to his other siblings, Klaus, Rebecca, Cole, and Finn, and see how Klaus was an unstable maniac hybrid, Rebecca was an unstable emotional crybaby, Cole an unstable psychopath, and Finn an unstable vampire with a sacrifice complex, only proved to me that Elijah at the time was the better of them. His calm mannerism, even when pressured, to his ways about handling things and getting what he wanted while not resorting to violence first, even though with violence he would have been unstoppable, demonstrated that he genuinely leaned to the side of good instead of bad, unlike his siblings. For instance, when Elijah appeared at Elena's house to quote-unquote help Jenna with the historical society files, he could have just killed everybody in the house, taken Elena, locked her up, and drew Klaus out when the time was right. But instead, he simply assured to her that he means her family no harm. Then goes on to cut her an amazing deal. She stays put, he protects her and her loved ones until the time comes to draw Klaus, then he kills him. Or even when Elena betrayed him twice, instead of taking a violent route, he gave her another chance to cut a deal and prove herself of his honor. But the most perfect example is when Elijah goes to New Orleans to see what Jane Devereaux had in store for Klaus. Jane being killed by Marcel prior to his arrival, he was told by Camille to look for Sophie Devereaux. Upon finding Sophie, seeing she was being attacked, he ends up killing Marcel lapdogs, then makes it known he was open to hear her out. Now, even though this shows him being neutrally good, most people miss that this also shows a glimpse of the true monster underneath. See, witches in the Vampire Diaries universe can in fact read energies. And before meeting Elijah, Sophie also ran into Klaus. Upon meeting him, you can see she presented herself with a little attitude, even while knowing Klaus was the most powerful and deadliest creature roaming around. But when it came to Elijah, sensing his energy, it was a completely different reaction. Pure fear, which led me to believe Sophie felt the underlying darkness behind the calming mannerism that was so much greater than Klaus's that it shook her to her very core. However, how Elijah handled things and carried himself throughout the rest of the series went on to show that he was still the stable one out of all his siblings, but deep down he was actually the worst of them all. What people fail to realize is that really the honor and elegance Elijah portrayed was simply all in that, an act perfectly constructed behind suits and good mannerisms that it seemed extremely real. That is, until it came down to his family. When it came to family, everything Elijah stood for and the very construct of the noble man Elijah claimed / was known to be completely vanished in a blink of an eye. His morality, honor, nobility all melted away, revealing the terrifying beast he actually was. A good example of this is when their mother Esther had plotted to kill him and his siblings by linking them together to undo, quote, the evil she created. Elijah, suspicious of his mother, takes Elena, who knew, into the woods for a chat and Truth for questioning. Upon finding out Esther's true intentions to hurt the family, the mask comes right off, and the noble, morally coded Elijah vanishes, leading him to trap Elena underground with Rebecca, who hated Elena, then giving permission for her to kill Elena if Stephen and Damon didn't find a way to stop Esther. All morals lost, all honor and nobility faded, only savagery remained, showing to me that Elijah's claim to nobility was BS, and all of it goes out the window when his family comes into the picture.
My needs I kill, maim, and torment. Even today I terrorized an innocent.
Elena is hardly innocent.
And I used your hatred of her to get what I wanted. Wielded you like I would a sword.
But this was only a tip of the iceberg moment of truly seeing the type of monster Elijah really was. The rest began to unravel in the original series. In the originals, it was made transparent that those close to him knew about his deep underlying darkness. Like Klaus frequently pointed out that Elijah's ruthlessness was just as great as his own, only better dressed. Or mocking Elijah for believing he was quote unquote the good brother, when in reality Elijah would slaughter an entire army if it meant protecting the Michelson name. Adding on, in the early seasons of the original, Haley also voiced the realization that Elijah's nobility was only a mask for his lethality, saying in her own words, "I believe in an elegant gentleman, but I also know a man who will do anything to protect his family." Realizing firsthand that Elijah's always and forever vow wasn't just a sweet sentiment, it was a threat to anybody standing in their way. A hard pill to swallow, given the way we all thought of Elijah as the only decently good, fair sibling, but nonetheless proven on multiple occasions to be in fact not true. When the witch Agnes threatened to kill Haley and her unborn baby, Elijah stops Klaus himself from murdering the witch, only to then kill everyone in the room in an unsettling, gruesome way, even showing his true face even more with words.
No one hurts my family and lives. No one.
Above that is when Marcel returned to the French Quarter after being exiled by Elijah for a betrayal that happened decades before. Once caught, Elijah made Marcel watch as he tore his best friend's heart out clean from his chest, then goes on to utter the most vile words I ever stumbled upon.
You live. And you die according to my will.
You live and you die according to my will. At this point, I fully realized that Elijah was the most sinister of all his siblings. Although the most significant moment that proves my point is when Elijah actually kills Marcel. Marcel, angry about losing Davina because Elijah and Freya sacrificed her to kill Lucian, begins to threaten Klaus, whilst having a serum that would make him more powerful than the entire original family. Seeing this and hearing the threats made by Marcel, Elijah's mask slowly begins to slide right off. And then a split second later, he simply kills Marcel by going behind his back and ripping out his heart. Now that action was so evil, it shocked me and Klaus. In addition, his face afterwards only proved that he couldn't even help that he do anything, no matter how vile or sinister, to protect his family, thus making him in my book truthfully worse and more monstrous than any of his siblings could ever be. The Elijah we see as better than all of his siblings or honorable and noble was never the real Elijah. It was simply a facade to hide the disgusting reality that he was nothing more than a pure monster. This realization was even confirmed by the confirmation of Elijah's red door theory, a theory that stated Elijah's impeccable appearance and grooming were psychological coping mechanisms to keep his quote-unquote inner beast and memories of his violence locked away. So keeping the conclusion short and simple, with all this being said, Elijah was without a doubt the worst out of all of his siblings. His true nature was disguised under perfect mannerisms, suits, codes of honor, and nobility, making it hard to notice that he was not at all better than the monsters everyone saw as monsters, but in fact worse. Once his family was in the slightest bit threatened or challenged, the nobleman you once thought you knew ceased to exist right in front of you, and something worse than Klaus, Cole, Rebecca, Finn, and even Damon appeared. So yeah, yes, once more, Elijah is the worst of all his siblings. If you think differently, please let me know in the comment section down below. That's all I got for y'all. Until next time.